All right, can you guys see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Oh, oops. So we're doing building effective speech is what my topic is today. And why is effective speech so important when I could just send a text, right? That's what kids probably think nowadays. And you guys are, let's say, ninth graders, by the way. You're my ninth grade students. So effective speaking skills are consistently rated the most important by prospective employers looking to hire. All the skills in the world mean nothing if you can't effectively communicate. If you're a doctor and you're in surgery and you're saying, "Hey, hand me that shiny thing, the pointy thing that I need." I can't think of the word. You over no, not you, the other person, you. Like how confusing, how horrible, and then all of a sudden that surgery is going to have some complications. A lawyer who can't argue in court, an engineer who can't communicate why their plans are laid out a certain way, a plumber, electricians. It doesn't matter what job you're in. It doesn't even matter if you're an athlete. If you can't effectively communicate, hey, throw me the ball, I'm open. Um, you're not going to be as effective at your job. Developing this talent takes time. It takes energy. It's not something that's native to people. You really do have to work at it, but everybody can be effective communicators. This is what we're going to cover in the lesson today. Effective speech prep and delivery based on these factors. Your intended audience, your end goal or the purpose of your speech, what things to include, what things to avoid, and how to close, how to end that speech. To start off with, though, I'd like to cover, just to get some ideas from you guys, what is the best speech that you can remember and what made it so great? This is something that you could have been in person for, something you read, or even something you watched a video of. What would you guys say is the most impactful speech you remember?
I think the easy one to go with is like the I have a dream speech, just because literally everybody knows it and knows its message. It's effective and it makes you feel something.
Very good. Gina, what about you?
Well, I think it was in 2015, I was part of the Listen to Your Mother tour at the Rococo Theater. Just talked about motherhood experiences. So that was really cool for me.
Awesome. That's cool. Very insightful. For both of you. Dan, I agree 100%. I have a dream speech is it's known worldwide as being literally one of the most famous speeches of all time. Google, top 10 most famous speeches or most effective speeches or most powerful speeches. It will always be number one. But to your credit, Gina, certainly the expertise of uh, women talking, in a listen to your mother, talking about motherhood, talking about their experiences would be impactful because we can all relate. Everybody has a mom, or everybody, or half the people, or so on, become mothers, so they can relate in a way to be the receiver or the giver of that insight. Um, we're going to cover just a minute of Martin Luther King's "I Have a Dream" speech, just the first about 90 seconds of it, and then we'll come back to it. So I'm going to play this right now.
I am happy to join with you today in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation. Five score years ago, a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand today signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This momentous decree came as a great beacon light of hope to millions of Negro slaves who had been seared in the flames of withering injustice. It came as a joyous daybreak to end the long night of their captivity. But 100 years later, the Negro still is not free.
So, what makes this speech so powerful? Dan covered a couple things, but it informs, it persuades. You know, he talks first about 50 years ago. He's relating that to the way that Abraham Lincoln spoke, in whose shadow they were. When Gettysburg Address, 7 years ago. It persuades, why should everyone be free? He talks about later in the speech the Constitution. The Constitution says all men are created equal. Freedom is a guarantee. It persuades people to think about how history changes us, but how he envisions through his dream a world that's fair and just. His speaking cadence and pace, was he rushing? Did he rush at all when he was talking? He was very deliberate. He spoke with clarity. He used standard American English. This speech you could read today and you understand every word he's saying. He didn't talk in a slang from the 60s. He didn't use words that only part of the audience could understand. There were hundreds of thousands of people listening to that speech. Everyone's face was glued on him as he spoke. He didn't say, he didn't say, he didn't use any fillers whatsoever. He just spoke very deliberately and very powerful. He spoke the truth from a position of authority. He was a civil rights leader. If they found Brian Smith on the side of the road and said, "Hey, do you want to talk in front of 500,000 people?" It would not have been an effective speech. Nobody would have given him the time of day, but he had the credibility for who he was. So we're going to talk about your audience and how that affects your preparation and delivery. So there are two types of audiences. There's an informal and a formal audience. Informal could be friends, family members, social groups, your fantasy football league, your bros, the guy that you sit next to at the bar, someone who's waiting in line with you, classmates, passersby. Formal could be customers, classmates, superiors, your boss, your teachers, your administrators in the military. Subordinates could be the same, your students. And anyone else whose time you have reserved. It's very important. If you're borrowing time from somebody and you requested a specific time with them, you owe it to them to treat that with respect. We scheduled this time here today at 12:30. We were on time. We were prepared. That's a form of respect, showing that their time and your time is worthy to not be wasted. So what is the difference in communicating to these different audiences? Which one of these two requires preparation? Dan.
Formal. Informal, it's like a conversation, right? Like
Sure.
it can on a whim, basically.
Yeah, informal could also be you're just giving a presentation via something that you want to say. I mean, if you are with your friends and you're all arguing about where you should go to eat, on the spur of your mind, the spur of the moment, you could start to deliver a speech that impassionately convinces them where you want to go. But that probably doesn't require any sort of preparation. What about a high degree of professionalism, Gina?
That's formal.
Formal.
Mm-hmm.
How about jocular? Do you guys know what jocular means? I know you're only ninth graders. It doesn't mean anything to do with jocks or athletes. It means something that's done in a joking manner or with a high degree of comedy or levity. Would that be informal or formal?
Likely informal.
Yes.
Formal, but maybe formal as well. I've been a part of quite a number of speeches, a lot of graduation speeches, for example, that are really funny, and you hang on every word because you want to see what they're going to say next, right? But if you're giving a scientific presentation about a new discovery of some exoplanet in outer space, and you're cracking wise the entire time, your audience may start to perceive you as not credible or maybe not a serious person. What about slang? When is slang okay? An informal or informal?
I would say informal.
Mhm.
And then shared knowledge between speaker and listener. When is this the case? When it's an informal setting or a formal setting?
Both.
Probably, right? At least possibly.
Mhm.
So if you're at the bar and elbow the guy next to you and say, what do you think the score of this game's going to be? You can assume that he knows what teams are playing, what sport it is, how it's played, what are the possible scores that could be, the records of the teams, etc. But you wouldn't go up to that same guy and say, like, what's the atomic weight of beryllium? You know that off the top of your head? No. And you wouldn't say, like, well, I've been comparing beryllium to plutonium in my laboratory. I couldn't believe what I found. And you go into all these complicated things, you're going to lose them. So you need to know your audience, but you can always assume there's some degree of shared knowledge between speaker and listener. So why are you even talking? Why are you delivering this speech? You got to ask yourself these questions. What is my end goal? What am I trying to accomplish with that group of buddies that you're with, and you're trying to convince them you want to go eat at a certain restaurant? You're trying to persuade them. If you're at a scientific conference and you're trying to deliver new research, you're trying to inform them. You're always trying to do something, though. You're not just talking and then eventually you fold your hands and then sit blankly and look at people. They think you were some sort of weirdo. What do I need to know to get there? You need to know what the steps you need to take. And then what do they need to know to get there? So we'll go into that. So a thesis statement is something you should definitely include. This sounds crazy if you're talking with your buddies, but a thesis statement could be as easily as saying, the best restaurant for all of us, considering what we're looking for, is Buffalo Wild Wings. You said you want burgers. You said you want chicken. You said you want wings. They serve it all, and they have sports on to boot. That's a thesis statement, even if you're just talking with buddies. A closing statement. We've gone over the options. We know what's open. We know where we can get a seat at what table, and we know what kind of food they serve. Like, I think the choice is clear. Let's go to Buffalo Wild Wings. Any citations? John, you've told me you love their wings. And Bill, you said they've got a new sauce of the month you wanted to try. Let's go over to Buffalo Wild Wings. Actually, I've heard in the paper that the local food critic actually said he gave it 10 out of 10, which he never does for a chain restaurant. It must be good. Let's go there. Visual aids. You could pull up a copy of their menu on your phone. You could pull up a review on your phone. You could show them an ad that you've seen. There's all sorts of visual aids you can use to enhance your message. Any questions? You said you wanted wings. Like, well, where else would you get wings that also serves burgers, where we could get into tonight? Does anybody else know? No? I think the choice is clear. And then gossip, rumors, and unsubstantiated claims. No, false. You don't actually want to do that. Don't dog something else. Don't say, like, we don't want to go to Larry's Wing Shack. I heard there's cockroaches in that place. One, you don't want to bring negativity into it. You don't want to say anything unfounded. What if the guy across from you loves going to Larry's Wing Shack? What if he is one of the owners? What if he knows the owner and you're dogging something else that they enjoy? It's not an effective way to communicate. But here's items to avoid. Divisive topics. Don't talk about the horrible experiences you've had at other places. Don't talk about religion, politics, or sex. We're just trying to figure out where we're going to go eat. Like, why are you bringing why does that restaurant have to be a liberal restaurant or a conservative restaurant? Oh, I've heard that they only play Fox News or CNN on their TVs. I'm not going there. That's only going to cause strife in your message. It's not going to clarify or make people feel any better. Don't use acronyms. It's like, oh, I can't believe it. They got the new LOL BBQ sauce. It's like, what if people don't know what that means? I knew a lady once. I read a story where a lady did not know what LOL meant, which means laughing out loud, if you didn't know. But she thought it meant lots of love. And so she was going around and posting on people's obituaries. And it was saying, like, oh, my grandma just died. Here's my grandma's story. She was such a great lady. And she said, sorry for your loss, LOL. And it's like, imagine if you read that and you thought that this lady was laughing at you, but she was trying to express her condolences. It's always best to avoid acronyms unless you are sure people know what it means. Don't use slang unless it's in informal settings. You wouldn't want to use slang to convey that you are a knowledgeable person. If you're in a formal setting, just avoid it. By that same nature, don't use overly technical talk unless, once again, you're positive that everybody in the audience can understand your message. There's nothing worse than when a message goes right over somebody's head because they start talking about neutrinos and quarks and subatomic particles. And I'm a fifth grader and I'm just there to look at a telescope. Like, I don't know what any of that stuff means. You've confused me now, and now I don't know what's going on. Anything unsubstantiated, just like the last thing. Don't talk about something if you don't come at it from a level of expertise or knowledge, or that you can't cite. Don't use filler words either. Or some people just trail off into nothingness. I had a teacher once in high school. She drove me absolutely nuts because every time she would talk, she would say, okay. I listened to her talk one period, a 40-minute or 45-minute class period, I think. She said, okay, 56 times. And every time I made a little check mark on my page, and my page was almost full by the time the class got over with. It got to be so distracting. I don't know what she was even talking about. It was an honors world geography class, and I probably couldn't have identified Nebraska on a map by the time she got done because of just how crazy I was. And then distracting visual aids. There's nothing worse than when you're trying to talk and everybody's just so distracted because they're staring at these bright flashing lights and colorful images. Oh, whoa, whoops, sorry. Are you guys paying attention, or were you looking at those bright, colorful images? In the same vein, you would never want to pass out a handout to somebody before you speak, or while you're speaking, because the moment you do that, their attention is turned from you to that sheet. And all they're going to do is look at that sheet and look ahead from where you're talking. And then they'll get distracted. They'll move ahead. They'll be lost. It's best to do things when they need to be delivered and as they need to be delivered. How to close. I've got about 2.5 minutes left, so I'm going to go through this. Try not to rush through it. Remember to focus on your goal at all times. What did you start off with? What was your end goal? Summarize your main points. If you are, once again, let's say you're impassionately talking about going to the wing place, you're going to summarize location, time frame, menu, reviews, the fact that you can get in, the fact that the game is on, etc. You're going to make recommendations. Let's go there. Let's go there right now. You've persuaded them. Now you're trying to get their buy-in. And anytime you do this, even if you're speaking to inform, if I'm speaking about a new discovery, I'm going to recommend that the audience follows up and does more reading or more research via these other scientists or these other presenters. I'm going to thank them for their time. Hey guys, I appreciate you all coming out today. It's been so fun. I can't believe we got together. It's been so long. Like, people do appreciate that. There's a level of very like genuity to doing that. And then do a backflip. No, don't actually do a backflip. Unless you're speaking at a backflip convention, it would be best to not do a backflip when you're done speaking. I was going to work through some scenarios with you guys. Because I'm running short on time, we're going to skip that. But is there any questions that you guys have for me?
Not really. That was incredible.
That was great.
I appreciate it.
So, are you doing this for your master's, or what are you doing this for, this course?
I am going to become a secondary English language arts teacher.
Great.
Yeah.
And so, are you through the pathways?
Nope. I am just an old guy looking to go back to college.
Oh, you're not old.